There was even a part where he claims that Andrew Jarecki, who was one of the directors and writers of both the movie and the HBO documentary, The Jinx, that he was claiming that Jarecki was telling him what to say. As far as I'm concerned, all of those things fell a bit flat. I want to get your thoughts on some of his responses there and whether how this jury might be taking some of it.
Well, I agree with the, I was told to say this. I was told to say that the cadaver note, whoever wrote the cadaver note must have been the killer. That just doesn't even sound remotely believable. A lot of what Durst says isn't remotely believable, but Durst is a psychopath that thinks that he can rely on his charisma at times, I think, to get away with things, and it's worked well for him. The other parts, though, that really had Lewin like a dog with a bone with the Uno game and the Frisbee. I really think that he spent way too much time there. And, where I am not remembering things, you remember something from childhood and you can be certain that it's true and your memory is off. And that was a little bit much to, go the liar route with not remembering it was Uno or Goldfish or something else. So I think that there's been both hits and misses with how Lewin is handling this. But Durst, Durst cannot continue on this path of, I was told to say this, or but I'm telling the truth here now. I just don't think that's going to work with this jury or any jury.
Chris, is he at the point of no return already? I mean, just from listening to the last hour or so, just all of the contradictions, all of his admissions so far, is there a way he can rehabilitate himself and get this jury to the point where they can believe some of the more important statements that he's made?
I think there is, and I also think that one of the things, we're looking at this trial this day, through this window. But when you look at the way that this trial is played out as a whole, I think that Durst's team has done a really good job. We're not talking a lot about Susan Berman. We are not talking about the cause and manner of her death. We're not talking about her as the victim. Yesterday, we spent all day talking about a different victim in Galveston. And this trial is about Susan Berman. And I think that because we've spent so much time on all of these other, really what are collateral matters, I think it's going to be very hard for a jury to put together beyond a reasonable doubt that, Mr. Durst did commit this crime of murdering Susan Berman. And I think that Lewin needs to really focus in on what happened on that day and on that trip to California and get away from this talking about the movie, because, his review of the movie is really irrelevant to what happened to Susan Berman.
That's a great point, because that's the point I wanted to make next was he's caught up in all these different details and these lies, and those things could come back to haunt him for taking the stand. That's Robert Durst I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, I wonder if had he not taken the stand, that there was enough evidence there to truly convict him, because now this case could really come down to who wins this battle between Lewin and Durst on the stand, as opposed to the actual evidence in the case, of which there's not a tremendous amount that really points to him as the killer of Susan Berman.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday we had, his attorneys rolling around on the ground reenacting, the Galveston murder. I mean, there's some sideshows that are happening here. And, who does this favor at the end of the day? I'm not sure. But, if he gets caught in enough lies, it could end up, causing a conviction. And this is where his hubris comes into play. He thinks that he is so smart that he can convince or persuade this jury with whatever charisma he has left. And, I just don't know that that's going to end up working in the long run. Are there enough here in terms of appealable errors for him to get out of it if he does get convicted? That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, there's plenty there, and I'm sure they're making a list and checking that twice. All right,